exciting tip. This week is going to be a little bit different than other weeks in that I'm not taking something from the discussions within the BCBA resources group, but instead, because I feel like it, I'm deciding to post and do a video about signs of damage, which I think is a really fun and interesting area of research that kind of got forgotten and a lot of people don't know about. So I learned about this from my one of my mentors. I was very lucky to work with, Dr. Ed Blakely, and he did some research on this as well. So signs of damage is a function of behavior. And if you go back to my other tip where I said like the exact category of function in terms of escape, tangible, whatever, doesn't matter as much as like the function that's specific to the specific behavior, right? So things aren't going to fit neatly into one of the four groups occasionally, and that is all right. And it can still be a function. There can be more than those four basic ones. It's just that the vast majority of things fit within seat. This does not. I guess it could maybe fall under sensory, but it's not automatic. So anyway, we will get into it. But what signs of damage is, and Skinner talked about this, which is what led to people researching it, is that signs of damage to another organism functions as a reinforcer evolutionarily, because if you can harm another organism around you enough to see that it's been harmed, then what Skinner hypothesized is that means that probably that same organism will not be able to continue trying to harm you or your family, right? Like, so if it's obviously injured, it's not going to be able to follow you or attack you or steal your food or anything like that. So that was the original idea that Skinner wrote about. He himself did not test this. A number of behavior analysts tested it. The most famous one among them, I would say, is Azrin, or the most familiar, because he did the rapid toilet training. So you guys that are even new to the field might recognize Azrin. But we could do a whole CEU on this. I'm going to keep this to like 5 minutes or so. There's a lot to dig into. I can give you references if you like. But what's on the screen right now are Sprague-Dawley rats. And they choose these specific rats because they are the most docile rats that anybody knows of. Meaning, and these are both female Sprague-Dawley rats, if you leave them alone with each other in a cage, like they are basically never going to attack each other. The males will rarely be aggressive, but the females of this kind of rat, it's unheard of. So that's why they chose that particular rat. They wanted to make sure if they saw aggression, it was for the reasons they thought and not because the mice were or rats were aggressing for some other reason. So these two rats basically are very docile, very chill. What they found is that if you warm the floor, which really means electric current, like their paws are really hot and it makes them dance. Sorry, my cat is upset. We don't do that anymore, but these are old studies. Anyway, I don't know if you can hear him meowing. So they would warm the floor, which is kind of like electric stimulus, or they would say like heated floors, but it was very aversive and very uncomfortable. And then once that, or was it electric shock? I think it was warmed floors. I could be misremembering. It's not that important. So they would do that. And then the mouse would, or rat would attack the other rat that was in the cage with it, regardless of how close it was or if it had anything to do with the aversive stimulus the rat felt. So they were like, interesting. It does seem the signs of damage in retaliation to aversive stimulus happens, and it doesn't quite matter where the stimulus came from, aka hurt rats, or hurt people, right? So they went from rats to other animals. By the way, the rats was Azrin, and he had like dead rats on popsicle sticks to mimic live rats. They found that animals only want to attack other alive members of their species, not stuffed animals, not dead rats on popsicle sticks in the basement of a psychiatric hospital that Azrin was doing. These studies are pretty wild if you go back and read them. Anyway, they tried this on pigeons. They found the exact same thing. If the pigeon was delivered an aversive stimulus, or they were given a frequency ratio, which caused essentially ratio strain. So this is no reinforcement available. And there's no scheduled reinforcement, obviously, right? And this is attack frequency on an FR fixed ratio of 50 scheduled reinforcement. Attack frequency goes up. It's just an ABA design, and it's clear as day. And pigeons would pluck feathers and attack other pigeons as well. So it was true for pigeons, and that's what they wanted to discover. And they found that pigeons act essentially the same way as the rats did. So then they were like, okay, it's true for rats, it's true for pigeons. Is it true for things that are more like us? So they use squirrel monkeys. And they don't use squirrel monkeys anymore for the most part. I don't think there's any research on them at all because they are very similar to us. But even in this research, they had to modify it. So what you're looking at the top, on the left-hand side, there is a squirrel monkey. And what they would do is deliver an aversive stimulus to the squirrel monkey. And they trained the monkey that it could pull on the chain that you see its little hands up towards where it says RL and RR. They trained it that if it pulls the chain, then see this other panel, after it pulls the chain, it would drop down a ball that the monkey could bite. And that was the only way they could test aggression, because squirrel monkeys, they, I think, did it one time with another actual monkey, and it was so aggressive it wasn't safe for the animals. Like they couldn't do it. Whereas like with the pigeons, they might like walk over and pluck one feather from the other pigeon. It wasn't like a fatal attack, but the squirrel monkeys were like really aggressive. They couldn't keep them in a cage together safely. So they tested it this way instead. But what's interesting about this is this has another step. The monkey has to work. It has to burn calories and engage in response effort and learn how to engage in that response effort, right, with conditioning and all of that, in order to obtain the reinforcer of something to attack. Which adds another layer, right? Like it's not only because it's there, it's not because I'm aggravated or whatever, or there's not some misunderstanding. It is burning calories to have something to attack only when it gets an aversive stimulus, or the aversive stimulus is in the form of fixed ratio schedules of reinforcement in the air of like, I don't get paid enough for this, right? So that signs of damage. It's really, really fun. I want to know if you've heard of it before, and if you had, from where. If not, do you want to hear more about it? Because there is this in humans, and I have information on that if you guys want to know more. If not, I'll see you next Tuesday, and have a great week.